they had a perfect recipe for serious injuries. It was Chicago adults and a bar attached to a indoor bumper car court.
Yeah.
With basketball hoops and with what highlight what would you call those? Highlight, right? What are those things called?
We call them track ball.
Oh,
it was
track
like
ball.
these,
That's right.
Yeah, but it was basically like highlight. It's like you got this basket thing on a wand, and you're, and it's like a wiffle ball or something, and you're just whipping it, and catching it with that thing. So. I mean, it was super fun, but I'm pretty sure I remember you like dumped like a full pitcher. I don't know if it was beer or if it was just like ice water, like on my head.
No way.
Yes, that happened at the Whirleyball. Welcome to Backtracking, the show where two old friends take a second listen to influential bands' catalogs track by track. I am J. William Hall.
And I'm Dan Fiden. We'll be taking this journey together, providing context both personal and historical on some legendary bands. For our second season, we picked none other than pioneering indie rockers, American Music Club. J. William Hall.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's the full entire name.
So it's been 7 days since we last discussed.
Yes, a full.
That's a week. That's a week. A full week.
1 full week.
Yeah.
Calendar week.
They're always 7 days. There's no.
Not always.
No, they are
not always.
No, what are you talking about?
This was codified. There were other times and other places where people considered a week a different amount of days.
Yeah, but
in historical ancient times.
No, those were stupid people. Those were stupid people. Stupid people.
What if our calendar could evolve further?
Even like an 8-day week?
What if we said like 5-day week? Or what if we went, here's an idea.
Okay.
Here's a big idea.
Okay, we're just brainstorming here, everybody.
Let's make America decimal again.
Decimal, so 10.
or for the first time.
10-day week.
10-day week is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but then how do we deal with the fact that there are 365 days in a year?
Well, you could have a holiday.
Well, wait a second.
period.
Hold on. I guess it doesn't matter because it's not like we start over again on Monday on New Year's Day, right? New Year's Day can fall in the middle of a week. You're just talking about a week. You're not talking about anything else. So we could just say every week has 10 days and then, the months.
And further, what I would like to say is we maintain a 5-day work week. We maintain it.
So
you're 5 days on, 5 days off, or, that's norm.
That's pretty, it seems pretty grabby to me.
Grabby how?
Well, I mean, you're not advocating for like a 3-day weekend, which you sometimes hear. You sometimes hear people say that. You're going straight to a 5-day weekend.
That's right.
Wow.
5-day work week followed by 5-day weekend.
Yeah. That is, you know what that is? That's the art of the deal right there. You go in aggressive.
Hey, think of what it would do to unemployment.
What would it do to unemployment?
It would decrease it dramatically because there would be so many more jobs available. Because they would need to to keep services and whatever going.
Yeah.
If you're only working 5 days out of 10, somebody else has to work the other 5 days, right? Or I don't know, everything shuts down for 5 days.
Listen,
every 5 days.
Why don't you all out there listening write in? Tell us what you think about this proposal. I think it's radical, but some of the most genius ideas in history have been radical.
People would be happier. People would have the ultimate work-life balance, 50-50 even.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's really more than 50-50, isn't it? Because I think when they were
counting,
when they were originally kind of like conceiving of this 8-hour day, right? You know, I think it was 8 hours work, 8 hours rest, 8 hours sleep. I think was the idea, because of course we have 24 hours in a day, unless you plan on changing that as well. I mean, listen, it sounds to me like you're getting a little big for your britches. You're reconstructing the entirety of time and space.
Let's do it, people. Everybody would be so much better at math.
Yeah.
If we went decimal.
Yeah. Yeah. They would be more successful at math. They wouldn't necessarily be better. We'd just be lowering the bar. Right?
Would we be lowering it or would we be raising it?
These are all good questions. I feel like
this is where we need the listeners to decide.
Yeah.
Listeners need to weigh in on my proposals.
Yes.
Much like my reimagined American Music Club albums with my, change track order or whatever.
I know.
I'm also looking to rearrange society, humanity in general in different ways.
He's an innovator.
Number one,
he's an innovator.
People.
There are no sacred cows in the J. William Hall household. The sacred cows, he grabs the sacred cows and batters them about the udders and cheeks.
Your description, not mine. But I'm here to rethink everything. I'm backtracking. I'm not just backtracking American Music Club. I'm backtracking life, humanity,
society.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You're a regular. I don't know who's somebody like that. Ben Franklin. You're a regular Ben Franklin, right?
I'll take that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, listen, I'm just throwing it out there because he seems non-controversial. I don't want to cause any. Everyone's so uptight these days. Mention somebody, then I'm gonna get an Instagram at Oh wow, maybe you didn't realize that Ben Franklin.
I'm absolutely positive that there are skeletons in Ben Franklin's closet.
You son of a bitch, don't you dare say that about Ben Franklin.
He was just a man. Don't even get me going on my rants about the founding fathers.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to.
I've got something to say, but we'll save that for a later episode of Backtrack.
That sounds good. So, Jay William, we are going to dive into the second side of American Music Club's 7th album, 7th full-length LP. It's San Francisco.
That's right.
I think there's, listen, there is so much to be said about this album, and we said, frankly, quite a bit of it in the last episode. But this time I want to dive right into the first song on the second side because we need to make sure to leave time at the end of this episode for two important things. One of them, of course, is the best and the worst. I don't want you to go into that best and worst conversation unprepared. So I expect you to be really thinking over your selections, and I need for you to be prepared to defend them in the face of withering questioning. Okay?
I appreciate the reminder. Thank you.
Yeah. And the second thing, of course, that fans they've been writing in about, they've been saying, I cannot wait to get it, is, of course, the J. William Hall retracking. Maybe we should just TM that. Let's just trademark that right now. The backtracking, retracking.
Yes.
Can You Help It? I believe it was called the Can You Help It edition of San Francisco.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
People are excited.
I've got it.
People are excited.
I've got it. Ready to go. It's ready to go.
I don't want to say that any of those people are Mark Eitzel from American Music Club or his record label and agent who may be interested in releasing this edition. I don't want to say that because they aren't any of them.
Well, this is just one fan's opinion.
Yeah, well, I will, perhaps we can send this along as our second missive to Mr. Eitzel, in the hope that he will engage with us to discuss that. But one bit of note for everyone out there, while we're speaking about Mr. Eitzel, he's on tour right now, y'all. He is on tour right now. So please just go to the American Music Club website. I believe that there is a link to how to get tickets there, but there is definitely some posting happening on the Mark Eitzel Instagram account. He is touring, I believe, only in Europe right now, and I think the tour is going through March through early summer. So if you happen to hear this and you happen to be in Europe and you happen to not know that he's on tour, please go see him. I certainly would, but it does not appear as though there is a plan for Mr. Eitzel to tour in Hawaii, which is, of course, a sad reality of living here in Hawaii. Essentially, no one comes here to tour.
I always think it's a possibility for him to visit Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, yeah.
And I will definitely keep an eye out.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's all do that. But enough of this chit chat, this yakety yak. I want to get into Hello Amsterdam. It is the opener of our side B. As you know, the LP, as we discussed in the last episode, the vinyl pressing of this album has a completely different track listing and track sequencing. So we arbitrarily kind of decided to use the CD as the canon version of San Francisco, and we just agreed that Hello Amsterdam would be the logical side B opener. So let's get to it without any more bullshit from me. 3 minutes and 29 seconds. Hello Amsterdam. Let's go. Jay William. You know that song?
Yeah.
It's like a refreshing, like a lemony beverage. Like a not quite like a 7-Up, more like a bitter lemon, as I think we've actually discussed before. Fizzy bitter lemon from ye old Great Britain.
Yeah, you were talking about that one time, and I was like, I have no idea what you mean.
Yeah, bitter lemon is like it's like a soda pop that's like, I mean, it's like a lemon soda that's much more bitter. You know what, Jay William? It is. It is.
What's that?
I don't know if you remember this song, but it is. It's bittersweet. It's more sweet than bitter. It's more bitter than sweet. It's bittersweet.
Oh my God. I used to, there was some period of time when my boys were little where like that word got introduced to the house vocabulary.
Yeah.
And I could not stop for weeks. I was like, it's bittersweet, and like just out of nowhere. And, I think my boys to this day, they only know that song through my doing that. But
who was that?
Big Head Todd and the Monsters. Big Head Todd and the Monsters.
Of course, it was Big Head Todd and the Monsters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this song. To get back to it, I think this song is like tremendously fun. It's tremendously funny, and it kind of really rocks. I think that this song. My overall kind of feedback on it is this song is the rock and roll palate cleanser that they've been going for, the kind of goofy rock and roll palate cleanser that they've been doing a version of on pretty much all of the albums to date. And this is certainly one of my favorites of that kind of mini genre of AMC song, if not my favorite.
Yeah, this to me feels like the start of or side B of California, kind of, where like Bad Liquor is the first song, and this one isn't that like raw, rowdy, scary Eitzel. This is doing this kind of pop, sort of like super catchy power pop song.
Yeah.
Which is new in, as far as I can remember in the AMC canon. So Yeah, definitely trying something different, and the production feels like, we're gonna make this thing a pop hit.
Yeah.
Like this is gonna sound big on radio and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it isn't a song that I'm going to say is flawless in my mind, but I do really enjoy it. I think it's pretty nice. So lyrically, I just think it's a very kind of easily followed, descriptive, and very funny set of lyrics, right? It really kind of is this very funny I don't want to say it's a story, but it definitely you get some really powerful visuals of kind of someone who's in Amsterdam for the first time, and this sense that like, you know, these foreigners, these tourists in Amsterdam always end up kind of shit faced or stoned somewhere, near the canals in I can't remember whatever part of Amsterdam that is where all the stuff is. And it's totally. Have you ever been to Amsterdam, J. William Hall?
I have not. I have not been to Amsterdam.
Yeah, it
would love to visit. I've heard good things.
It's an interesting place. Terrible food, I will say. Terrible food, but it is a fun place to go for a couple of days. Certainly. Now I have not, roamed the entire country of the Netherlands. I haven't roamed the hinterlands of the Netherlands.
Surely there is some food in the entire city of Amsterdam that is really good.
I not that I've had. I mean, it's not that it's like inedible, but yeah, you know what it was? It is a very strange kind of junky food.
Well, don't you think that that's probably like I know like the marijuana tourist industry is been established there for many decades.
Yeah.
And so do you think that it's because of that the food tends to be more, is it more like greasy, junky, kind of like stoner food, or like?
I mean, listen, in so many ways, I'm probably the exact person that I was describing in this song and making fun of, because you always just kind of end up drunk and stoned, wandering around looking for like a big, bag full of French fries doused in mayonnaise, which is basically, there's a lot of that kind of street food junkiness. But again, in that main tourist area, that's really the only area I've been, because I've only ever been there for work, basically. And so it wasn't like a long trip any of the times I've been there. And
do you think people,
go ahead.
Do you think the tourists who go there, is your impression of the tourists, like American tourists who go to Amsterdam, like I would think most people are getting stoned as opposed to drunk, or is it just both? Is it everything?
I will say that my impression, and this is a
one person's impression, but you've been there a few times.
Massively superficial impression, but it is my impression. My sense is that the majority of the people who show up there are young British people or young European people. So like a lot of bachelor parties, a lot of those kinds of things. And it's a weekend trip for those people. So what you see a lot of is like a gang of, 20 somethings, younger adults who are there for like 2 days, 3 days. And so they hit it hard. They are getting stoned. They're getting drunk. They're going to a club. They're walking around the red light district doing who knows what kind of shenanigans they're up to in there. They're getting onto, bicycles. They're walking in the street. They're hooting and hollering, right? That's the kind of, it's like Vegas, except very different.
Bringing it back to AMC.
Yes,
basically,
we should do that.
Eitzel is describing these people.
My feeling is that he kind of, in some ways, like there's a section where he's talking about kind of being in a band and the audience is not really going for their stuff. And then there's just this other, just kind of like, I'm going to be bleary. I don't remember what the exact lyric is, but I'm going to be bleary-eyed by the canals, and I think it's just this kind of like, I'm this
tail between my legs. I'll creep back to the canal all alone, my eyes rolling like the moon.
Yeah. Pretty. I think pretty descriptive, very funny visual. I think very funny visual, and certainly indicative of quite a lot of the people that I saw when I was there.
So here's my question about the lyrics.
Yes.
I note,
yes,
I believe 3 different references to ABBA songs.
3 in a single song. All right, so take us through it.
Fernando, Waterloo, and Dancing Queen are all name checked in this song.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't know if there's a specific reason. Like, is there something about ABBA and Amsterdam that, like...
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean, I'm sure ABBA was as massively popular there as they were, everywhere, but...
yeah.
or...
No, I will say, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have nothing to add to that, but that is a very interesting catch.
So I would... This is my speculation. I think one of the differences between how you process this song and I process this song is that you've been to...
Yeah. Okay.
And so I'm guessing that this song sort of hits you on a different level than it does me.
Yeah.
Because, I don't dislike the song, but to me, this is like not the style or something of AMC that I feel like as enthusiastic about.
Yeah.
And, but it's interesting to have this conversation because I've never been there. And so I got that it was like ugly tourist, but I thought he was like describing himself.
I think he may be. I'm not sure, but, and I wouldn't say that this is, okay, I would say generally I agree with you. I am not, most of the time, I'm not a big fan of the kind of, how do we describe it? The bad liquor style of AMC song. But there is definitely like a through line of that in the catalog. I think one of the things I like about this song is it is maybe only superficially, but it is like really upbeat. Like I love the upbeat. The chorus of this song, that superstar refrain, I think is so fun rock and roll, right? There is something really fun about rock. All right, so Oasis. Have you heard of this band Oasis?
Yeah, the Gallagher Bros.
Yeah, the Gallagher Bros.
Of course I know Oasis.
Okay.
I lived it.
Okay. So Oasis has a song called Rock and Roll Star. Have you ever heard that song?
Yeah.
And there is like, the lyrical content of Oasis songs, I think is, not real impressive, right? There's not a lot going on.
That's not their...
Yeah.
Right. That's not their strong suit, but
yeah,
sometimes they string words together that are fun to sing and are easy to
that's right.
remember and
there's just not much going on. Like, you don't try to dig into those lyrics because you're going to hit bedrock immediately. You know what I mean?
Having said that, I am positive that if we look for it, somebody out there is doing, probably many people are doing Oasis track by track.
Really?
Sort of style. I'm just guessing because that's a band that I would expect there to be podcasts dedicated to.
Yeah. See, all right. So we're really sidetracking here already. We're sidetracking way away from Hello Amsterdam. But for me, I would never, although I will admit that I'm an Oasis fan. I'm not a huge fan, but I like Oasis. I
like some of their songs.
But it is not a band I would ever be interested in backtracking because it's an example of a band that on their first album, they found their sound and it basically never changes. You know what I mean?
That's true.
There's just like the production gets a little bit bigger and, you can argue the quality of the songwriting from one album to the next or whatever. But really it's like Oasis album number 1 and the last one that you care to listen to,
they all blur together.
Exactly. They're not very, there's not a lot of evolution in that band. No offense, Noel. No offense, Liam. Listen, you guys are not guys that I want to get on the bad side of because you seem very aggressive and very cranky.
You are likely to get a nasty tweet or whatever the fuck they're calling it these days from Liam.
Liam, yeah. Well, I don't want that to happen. But like going back to this, there's this song, Rock and Roll Star, and the chorus is like, tonight I'm a rock and roll star. And it's just like one of those chorus lyrics that you like listen to it and kind of your brain just like drips out of your ears, but you're like having a ton of fun. You know what I mean? And in a way, I think the chorus of this song is totally that superstar. It's so easy to sing along. It's such a fun vibe. That word repeated is just somehow makes you feel like it's going to be a big crazy night. You know what I mean? Like this is one of the few AMC songs I would say qualifies as a rave up.
Yeah. Big dumb fun.
Yeah, and
and I get it.
I kind of like it. I shouldn't because this is not the kind of thing that I like out of AMC, but like for some reason I really like it.
Well, I want to point out two separate but related items regarding the feel and the vibe of this song.
Okay, please.
First of all, it's got a very Rolling Stones kind of boogie woogie honky tonk woman kind of vibe to it in general, this kind of bar band blues rock sort of thing, but it's also kind of pop, woven in there as well. But I want to point out that this song is basically one of the templates that a couple of years later was well executed by Wilco on their Being There album in particular. I would posit that this song from AMC was kind foundational.
Okay, and so is there a specific song you can point us to that makes you feel that way?
Oh, what's the final song on that album?
I don't know. But I will
Dreamer of my dreams. Like, it was sort of this kind of like alt country, but then sort of in a more Stonesy kind of like blues rock, jam rock kind of way, but still with like a pop kind of sensibility to it.
So don't you think that Wilco had that earlier in their career though? That's kind of the way I think of AM.
Well, but their career,
a lot of that
their career started, but Wilco started in 95.
Oh, okay.
And this album came out in 94. Okay. So, I'm saying like this, I have another Wilco comment later on. On this side.
Okay.
But I'm not saying that they stole or ripped off the AMC sound, but like there are elements of AMC that I think like AMC was putting into the zeitgeist, and then they were there for Wilco to kind of reel in and do it in a more I don't know how you would describe, how is Wilco different from AMC, but like, they have their own way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that like, let's give the props. Let's give the props. AMC was laying it down first.
They were laying it down first, and maybe they were laying it down best. So the music here, I do think that there's this there is a very 1960s feel. I think a lot of that is the drum part. Now the drum part in the verses, it has that like it's a very kind of 1960s drum part. I don't love some of the parts of the drum part. This is very nitpicky, like, but I think that the drum part coming out of the chorus, going back into the verses, it needs a fill or something. The transition is a little bit awkward. But there's that fun boogie piano in this that I think I really like. It's different for AMC, but I think it works great in here.
I think that boogie woogie piano is what directly reminds me of some of that Wilco stuff. 'Cause it's the same instruments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and doing sort of a similar kind of boogie woogie vibe.
Yeah. No, and it's a very simple song. I think that these verses, it's just there's just one chord through the entirety of the verse, single chord verses, I think. It's a pretty simple song. My one gripe with this song, and it's the production, I just think the guitar is too low in the mix. I think Voodie's too low in the mix here. I think I could probably say that about a lot of the stuff on some of these later records for the band, but it struck me in this one. But overall, I mean, this is, I think, for me, a song that is uncharacteristic for me to like, but I like it nonetheless.
Well, yeah, I think it's okay.
Okay.
It's not my favorite,
okay.
But
All right, well, why don't we just move on?
Every song can't be your favorite.
It's true. Otherwise, none of them would be your favorite, and all of them would be your least favorite.
Right.
Yeah, it's a valuable lesson, kids. Tattoo that onto your cheek, below your eye, like the kids seem to do these days, in a decision that is undoubtedly going to cause you a serious amount of regret as you get older. But go ahead, do it. Just go ahead and do it.
But if you had that whole phrase tattooed,
Yeah.
it would have to start below an eye, go up and around above your eyebrows, around the other side to the other eye.
And you don't think that's what's happening? I don't know if you've taken a look at Jelly Roll lately, but
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Jelly Roll may in fact have that line written, all the way around his eye or down his jawline or one of those things.
Yeah, I'm worried there are some jobs that Jelly Roll will not be able to get now.
That is true.
He will be judged.
That is true. He probably could not be a greeter at Walmart.
Probably not.
Yeah. Well, Jelly Roll, you made your bed. You're just going to have to lie in it. Okay? Why don't we just move on to the revolving... Speaking of Walmart doors.
Yes.
The revolving door, second track on side B. It is 4 minutes and 47 seconds, according to my calculus. Shall we listen?
Your cold, cold heart that never opened and never tires. What chance do I have?
Okay, J. William Hall. What do you think about that one? What about those lyrics?
So this one seems kind of like a straight up sort of love song. You're longing for somebody to return your love. It sort of has sort of a similar doomed love kind of feel to it. Sort of a piece with some of the songs on the first side.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that this is, really the I've said this many times, but I feel like it bears repeating. I think that the chorus lyric to this song, Eitzel, by this point in his career, writes some of the best chorus lyrics, I think, in all of rock music. They just tend to be these really evocative, beautiful, easily memorable phrases. And I think that "What Chance Do I Have" lyric is just awesome.
Yeah, he this album especially, he really is kind of hitting those choruses, coming to a line or a distillation of, the message or whatever of the song. And a lot of times he does that thing with the verses feel a little more kind of free-formy.
Yeah.
And then it locks into a specific phrase for the chorus. But yeah, this song, can I switch to the production?
You can switch to the production. J. William, you can switch to whatever you want. You're the co-host.
Hey, you're the boss,
No.
man. You're the boss.
No. We have no bosses here.
So this one okay. We talked about Joe Ciccarelli.
We did talk about Joe Ciccarelli.
And I feel like this one feels a little bit like a Joe Ciccarelli production to me. it has a little bit of this 80s kind of like sophisticated pop kind of like Steve Winwood, Don Henley.
Oof. Yeah.
There's something, but that's honestly like when the song starts, like that's the vibe.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm about to hear
Yeah, there's a
I don't know, like Phil Collins maybe, like it just I think it's the sound of whatever the keyboard or whatever they're using there.
No, I can totally this is along the same lines as my comment. So there was a review that I read in AllMusic. If you're familiar with that site, it is http://allmusic.com. You can go there, look up American Music Club. They provide these generally unhelpful one-paragraph reviews, undoubtedly written by the staff of Pitchfork, which I wish.
Yeah, we gotta. It's a competition. Who can be?
Yeah, who can be the snarkiest?
Nastier.
Who can?
Snarky.
Yeah, who? Somebody needs to take those kids and lock them in their fucking locker and take their lunch money. Okay, that's how we used to do it in the old days. We just stuffed you right in the locker, took the lunch money. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. But the review it did strike me because it was very nasty and I think completely unnecessarily nasty. But it said that the album is filled with quote bland alterna rock, and I think alterna rock is a phrase that now probably requires some explanation. But there was this period of time, kind of in the mid to late 90s, where grunge, the initial wave of grunge had happened, and that music was called alternative because it was viewed as like the commercial alternative to the Backstreet Boys or something like that, New Kids on the Block, whatever the pop music was of that era. MC Hammer, for example. And so there was this kind of very broad, vague alternative name that people put on a lot of rock music. And as you got deeper into the 90s, there were a lot of kind of semi-corporate bands like, I don't know, Three Doors Down, or I'm probably not even going to remember all of them, but they just made this, it was rock music, but it was pretty undifferentiated. And I disagree with the use of that term towards American Music Club. I think it's just completely it's not the right term at all.
It's inaccurate.
Totally inaccurate. Totally inaccurate. Yeah. But I think some of the production touches on this song in particular are the closest thing to making me feel like I understood why that reviewer might have done it. There is a real guitar chug and drums and percussion bounciness in this song that feels somehow inappropriate, and I associate that with Mitchell Froom, but it is definitely here. And I think for me that's kind of the crux of what the issue is with this song. And this is definitely the song where I've kind of complained about sleigh bells and all the miscellaneous percussion. If I was the producer on this album, I would have taken Tim Mooney's congas and thrown them out the window. It just, this is not like, it gives these songs kind of you said it the other day, it's this like coffee house jam thing that I didn't like then and I don't really like now, and you know what I mean? I just I wish that it didn't have a scent of that in here.
Yeah, I agree with you, and the drums sound very much like a loop.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they are or not, but like it just has this very kind of like synthy loop,
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do love the chorus.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like later on in the song Voodie, this is one of his moments on this album. Like he whips off this crazy just this crazy solo that like, it's got these stabs and these sort of off-tempo shrieky bits and this little snatches of melody and then like some harmonics and it's got amp noise at the end and that's all within like 20 seconds or
Yeah.
something, like, but it's also very musical and like it adds to the song,
Yeah, it's a great moment.
So there are elements of this song that I really like, but there's something about the overall vibe of it that I feel kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if it was Ciccarelli or what it was.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Ciccarelli. Well, let's just say it was Ciccarelli. Let's say it was Ciccarelli.
Always blame the producer.
Well,
right?
listen, he certainly, if it was Tim Mooney with all, he's like brought in his like Latin percussion gig bag filled with, various gizmos. He should have just said to Tim, take that right back out, put it in the trunk of the Corolla, play the fucking drums. We don't need Tito Puente in here. We just need a fucking drummer. Okay? Tito Puente, get out of here. All right.
I might not phrase it the same,
You
but
think that's
I agree with the sentiment.
Okay. So you think that's a little rough? All right. Well, anyway, I think that we've probably said enough about the revolving door. I really want to talk about In the Shadow of the Valley. It is 6 minutes and 28 seconds. Let's give it a listen.
Why should I hide something I have no chance to see? My nights are all sleepless, so all for my day. I took the next chain of weariness down to LA.
Jay William. Unbelievable lyrics in this one. Can I just read you one of my favorites?
Yeah.
I can make your future easier to predict, hot as a devil, cold as an addict. Just so foreboding. This song has this like menace to it that is just so like oppressive, but simultaneously I think the song is just absolutely beautiful. And there's another line that has always been front of mind for me when I think about American Music Club that I just think is so beautiful, and it's such a beautiful sentiment, but a complicated sentiment. The third verse is just a killer in this, and the line I'm talking about is if I opened my heart, you would be washed away. And then he kind of goes on and goes into the coal drivers that drain from LA. But I just love that sentiment. I think these are terrific lyrics.
Yeah, they're very evocative, very poetic. He definitely, he's talking about LA in some capacity. And I don't know if it's like, I could be totally off, but I was like, is he leaving somebody behind in San Francisco? Like a romantic, that he's going to LA and he's going to kind of do the LA thing for a while or something. Like, what was your take on did you pull any meaning?
Yeah,
real or imagined?
Yeah, I mean, definitely imagined. I have no idea whether this is true, but I had a sense that there was some kind of a romantic relationship or a romantic relationship that essentially the author or the narrator in the song, maybe it's Eitzel, maybe it's not, is leaving in San Francisco and going to LA. But with some not small amount of regret, right? There's this sense that like the first verse I think is about him kind of trying really hard to do the things that he thinks are required to make this relationship work. And then the second is kind of like the act of leaving. And then the third is, I guess if I'm going to talk about it geographically, it's like the first verse is, if you've ever done this drive, the first verse is kind of actually leaving the Bay Area, and as you're getting to like Highway 5, which is out in the valley on the other side of the mountains, like you kind of get down past, San Jose into like Gilroy, and then you get out onto the big open island. Like the first verse is that. The second verse is I'm just tearing down Highway 5 and I'm kind of thinking about, now I'm already gone. I'm thinking about the act of me leaving. And then the third is he is in LA and he's looking back on the relationship. He still feels love for whoever this person is, but it's over at this point. That's a, perhaps overly over-engineered explanation of what I took from it, but that's what I took from it.
No, I love the, I love that visual and, I'm looking over the lyrics here and it I could see that. So do you think that the title In the Shadow of the Valley, it's a biblical reference.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
But do you think it's also a reference to like what would that valley be if you were driving from San Francisco down to LA? Is there a valley? There's got to be, right?
Yeah, I mean
or do you think he's talking about in LA?
There are valleys.
There
are valleys kind of I guess they're considered valleys, but they're well,
like Valley Girl.
In LA, there's the San Fernando Valley. I don't know what all the valleys are called, but basically in LA, the geography is like there are the Santa Monica Mountains. I think that the whole range is called the Santa Monica Mountains, but that kind of goes from like, the Hollywood Hills and all that, like from downtown LA, is on a stretch of the Santa Monica Mountains that kind of curves around and then meets up very close to the water in Malibu and then goes kind of parallel to the coastline all the way up to San Francisco. So like there's a whole mountain range there. And then on the east side of that mountain range is just described, I think, by most Californians as the valley.
Okay.
They call it like up north, north of Los Angeles, they call it the Central Valley, where like, Modesto and all that stuff is. But yeah, I kind of, the way I interpreted this is like, LA is in the shadow of the valley, San Fernando Valley, more or less. Cause I think when people think of, this may be wrong, but I think when people think of people from LA, think of like LA proper, they don't think of the valley. They think of everything from like the Hollywood Hills, Santa Monica Mountains to the water.
So I assume that the title is a deliberate double meaning.
Gotta be Scholars.
Do you think, was it Coolio who did Gangster's Paradise that started as I walk in the valley of the, I know that quote was also in the zeitgeist, right? Because of Pulp Fiction, probably.
Wait, Pulp Fiction?
Didn't Samuel L. Jackson's character, that was part of his like big speech that he would give people when he was about to kill them?
It was.
Or whatever.
Now, what year did Pulp Fiction come out? This is an interesting. I
think it's got to be 93.
Okay, I'm going to check on that, but continue with your theory.
But I feel like at least that movie, of course, like our generation watched that movie on a steady loop for, several years on videotape.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I wonder if that was in the air, so to speak, like of the time, like that concept, the valley of the shadow of death or whatever.
Pulp Fiction came out in 94. So
oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
did Quentin Tarantino steal the concept from American Music Club?
He probably did. He seems extremely shifty to me. I don't know about you, but I've felt for a long time like he is very shifty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I knew it.
Yeah. Well,
well.
All right, so enough about these lyrics, though. I want to talk about the music, because the music, I think, is one of the really, really amazing things about this. This song is total slowcore. I mean, this is as slowcore a song as exists maybe in the entire catalog, but it's just gorgeous.
It to me, it's like almost like post slowcore in a way, like it's not typical slowcore. It's like mature slowcore. Like it doesn't sound as I don't know, I guess raw or whatever. I don't know. Like, I mean, it's definitely slowcore. Like that was my note on this as well. Like this is that element of AMC is on this song, but it sounds grown up somehow. You know, like it's not like raw, like daring each other to play slower.
Yeah, nah,
you know,
yeah.
like
it doesn't. It doesn't.
Feels natural.
It doesn't feel like slowcore for the sake of being slowcore. It feels like slowcore is what the song demands, and they do it. But it's just the slowcore. I completely agree with that. But I want to dig in a little bit to some of the music here. The verses I think are really amazing musically. They're really just held together by the bass part. They're so sparse, but that bass is what kind of holds it together into a song. And the vocals, right? So it's really there are a couple of examples of this in the catalog, but it really feels to me like this is a bass and vocals song with super interesting, strange little elements of guitar picking and weird noises and just, you know what I mean? But it really feels like this is mostly kind of bass and vocals.
Yeah, I mean, this one is a real showpiece, you know, and I think especially listening to it closely and hearing the whole production, like the sparseness of it is what struck me, you know, particularly at the point where they're a 5-person band.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's just like a master class of restraint.
Totally.
In a way, you know, and, you know, and it does break free a little bit, like, on the choruses with the keyboard part, but like Eitzel, he kind of maintains kind of a restrained tone the whole time on this. Like he never really goes up to the, you know, like it's like I could hear, like I have a note that I could almost hear, like if Nick Cave performed this song, like he would do, you know, it would build to a big like Mad Preacher kind of style whatever, but Eitzel like holds it steady the whole way through, and you know, I think it's great.
No, I think it's totally great. I love his performance on this, and I think it, because it's so restrained both musically and in his vocal performance, you really appreciate the sentiment of the lyrics here, which are not angry lyrics. They're regretful lyrics, I think, mostly. And I like that quite a bit. I think the last, I have 2 other points that I want to make about this. One is really a little bit of a reversal on all of the shit I've been giving Tim Mooney and Joe Ciccarelli, the various producers, about the miscellaneous percussion. I actually think there's sleigh bells in the chorus of this song. And I think they work so well here, actually. It gives it this weirdly disconcerting feel in the chorus, and I really like it. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't mind those choices here and there, but I think when they're overused or when they're used in a very bouncy, jammy kind of way, I don't like it. And this, I feel like it just adds this nice little flavor to the song.
Yeah, it almost feels like sleigh bells. It's like you can only do that once per album.
Yeah. I mean, listen,
unless you're making a Christmas album.
Yeah, no, the Beach Boys definitely used a lot of sleigh bells. But I mean, again, it's like you can't really, they also use theremin. We were talking about theremin. You brought up the Beach Boys, right? But it's like,
that's true.
Tough. That's a tough comp. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be in a world where like the only other band people can think of that's doing the same thing are the Beach Boys, because pretty special.
Well, all right, well, get ready, because I'm about to give you an extremely hot take.
Okay, I'm ready. I got my oven mitts on.
I kind of hinted at it earlier, but I'm just gonna say it.
Okay.
Jeff Tweedy, you, sir, should apologize to American Music Club for ripping off what they did several years prior.
Yeah.
The extended sort of discordant jam out.
Yeah.
At the end of this song, In the Shadow of the Valley.
Yep.
Is the blueprint.
Yeah.
That Wilco used, to greater attention or whatever a few years later Sunken Treasure jam
Yeah.
at the end of Sunken Treasure on Being There. Same, where I said like that whole Stonesy kind of blues rocky,
Yeah.
Wilco did that a couple years, AMC did it first, baby.
Yeah.
It was right here.
Yeah.
Mr. Tweedy.
Yeah.
If you want to come on the podcast and defend yourself,
That's
you're
right.
cordially invited.
That's right. But
I'm
you
calling
better,
you out.
But you better come correct, as they say, Tweety, because we're not going to pussyfoot around. We're going to play you in the Shadow of the Valley, and then we're going to beat you about the head and face. Okay?
Not literally, because we'll be on the podcast and it's all just on the computer.
No, literally. We're going to literally do it. We're going to literally do it. I'm glad you brought up the fade section. This is a very weird, very interesting fade. I generally don't like the fade. I really like this fade. This is one of these few examples where I just kind of feel like it adds to the way exactly what you said, Jay William, the way they did this weird kind of off-kilter, discordant, quite long fade out really, I think, works really well for the song. In the same way that, I've mentioned it before, but one of my favorite fade outs is the song Do You Know How to Waltz by Low off of the album
Right.
The Curtain Hits the Cast. Another terrific fade out, but I this is a great one.
And I think that it also is musically appropriate for this set of lyrics because, he from his voice, the way he's singing it in this very kind of like, it's almost this like dazed and confused kind of way where, he's gone through this, heartbreaking situation and he's just in a daze, and then at the end, it's just sort of like, the beating yourself up about it kind of feeling.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think this song is a triumph in my opinion. I think it's one of the great AMC songs. Definitely a high point on this album, but it's time to move on to the next track. Are you ready, Jay William?
Indeed. I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too, because I have a lot to say about this one. It is, of course, What Holds the World Together. 4 minutes and 44 seconds. Let's go.
Land ahoy, I fill my weak lungs with this joy, dizzy on the deck, hoping that I last until we land, with an envelope burning a hole in my hand, bearing the names of the winners who walked away from the games that the slaves love to play, to replace the air and the sea, leaving you no way to fly to me. The world is held together by the wind that blows through general and sea.
Jay William, what do you have to say about these lyrics? Well, you know what? I'm gonna interrupt you before you.
Why won't you let me have the spotlight?
No.
Why can't I put my opinion out there first?
No, because your opinion is just not as important. It's just not as important.
See, you are the boss.
No.
You are the man.
No.
You get to call the
Listen.
shots. It's your podcast.
I know. I want to start this with a little bit of an anecdote. So obviously, Jenna Rollins, famous movie actress, I believe passed away at this point, but a big movie actress in kind of indie artier movies of the 70s, okay? 70s and 80s, I'm guessing, but 70s. And was in a relationship.
No, Jenna Rollins just died last year.
Wow. Well,
yeah,
at the ripe old age of, I'm guessing 90-ish.
94.
Yeah, 94. Good for her. Good for her. So, I mean, not good for her that she died, but good for her that she had such a fruitful, long life. So
hats off.
So the anecdote that I read in the Sean Body book that I think is important to share was that Eitzel apparently was inspired to write this song by watching a John Cassavetes movie called Love Streams. John Cassavetes and Jenna Rollins were in a relationship for a long time. Cassavetes apparently had a drinking problem, died not too long after Love Streams, and I think Love Streams was one of the last movies they made together, or was the last movie they made together. And it seems as though there's this sense that Rollins was kind of a Cassavetes muse, certainly a frequent collaborator. And there is a
okay, so yeah, Love Streams came out in 84.
84. Okay. So I believe this is the last movie they made together. It might not be. There might be something else after this, but it was towards the end of their collaboration. And Cassavetes died not too long after this movie was completed, is my recollection. Now, apparently there is a scene in this movie that was specifically the scene that inspired Eitzel to write this song, where Jenna Rollins looks at him with a certain look of love that felt as though it were not kind of acting. It just seemed like a very true moment, and was so evocative for Eitzel that he was inspired to write this song. I unfortunately, I've not seen Love Streams. I should have watched it before this, before recording this episode, but I was negligent.
Listen, I've got it right here. I'm reading the Wikipedia article about
the
movie Love Streams, which came out in 1984 and was John Cassavetes. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was his penultimate movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Opposite of her.
And they play siblings.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to read the whole plot here, but I will say that Roger Ebert gave it 4 out of 4 stars. And one thing that I learned when we were writing trivia questions together in Chicago was that I agree with Roger Ebert most of the time.
Oh, well, look at that. Well, unfortunately, R.I.P. Roger Ebert, R.I.P. Jenna Rollins, R.I.P. John Cassavetes, all dead. But I just want to provide that context because such a small moment to have inspired what I genuinely think is one of the most beautiful love songs I can possibly conceive. I think this is one of the greatest love songs that I have ever heard. I find this song unfailingly moving, almost to the point of tears every time I hear it, which I love a lot of American Music Club songs, but I just absolutely love this song. I just think the sentiment of the chorus, that like repeated line, what holds the world together is the wind that blows through Jenna Rollins' hair, is this really wonderful, lovely expression of that you feel when you're in love. Like when you feel that really deep love, you look at this person that you're really deeply in love with, and the smallest thing about them feels like it is everything in the world. It is like the most important thing in the world. And I love how he describes, he describes that essentially in the song. I just think it's an amazing, amazing song. That is my monologue. Jay William, please respond.
I am glad that you chose to cut me off and go first because your explanation of the power of the song I think is much better than than my explanation, because I did not know that background tidbit that he had been inspired by this particular scene or this particular look that she gave, you know. And so I was just a little bit like, I mean, I looked up who she was and I could see who she was and you know, the general outline of her career and stuff, but yeah, like I didn't know if this was just like a fan's kind of song. He was a big Jenna Rollins fan or, you know, what the deal was. You know, so now that you've kind of like, you know, enlightened me, you know, I'm reading the lyrics back here and definitely like, it's like, I get it now, you know, like at a level that I did not get it before. However, you know, given, even if I didn't quite understand what the song was about or whatever, his performance, coupled with the performance of the band, like this is the emotional climax of the album. This song, you know, it's you know, getting into the production a little bit, like this has like a more orchestral, you know, it's got like timpani drums and, you know, probably sleigh bells. I think there are sleigh bells.
Timpani and sleigh bells. I mean, you know, again, as much as I'm mocking this shit, there are moments on this record where I'm just like, God, of course you put timpani and sleigh bells in there. How could you do anything but?
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, and again, it's like a couple years later, Jeff Tweedy, what do you know, the summer teeth, the timpani and the sleigh bells, like, what are they picking up all the instruments as AMC's laying them down?
I know. But the choruses, they just build and build. It is a song that is triumphant, which is not a phrase, or it's not an adjective I'd use frequently for AMC songs. I think triumphant is not really a thing that generally they evoke, but that's kind of the only way I feel about it. And I think the what is a very melodramatic musical song, right? There's no question. This is a song that like builds. It does not shy away from the emotionality of the song at all. There's kind of no cynicism in the music of this song, even at all, which I love. She totally is embracing big. You know, this is a big love song with big emotionally wrought kind of choruses, like, but the fact that he again couples that with this very kind of micro moment of love that is so impactful, but somehow so it's a description of such a small thing in a way. I don't know. I think this is. I mean, if there is a Mount Rushmore of Mark Eitzel songs, this is for sure on it, in my opinion.
I will say that this is a song that upon backtracking, like I appreciate it so much more now than I did back when the album was released. You know, I think like if we're considering the CD track listing as sort of the canon, you know, like the last couple of songs or the, you know, on after Hello Amsterdam, it's like his voice goes into like very low, kind of like he's singing down mostly for 2 songs solid. And so on this one, when he finally goes big, it's kind of like, it is like the dam bursting a little bit, you know, it is this triumphant kind of feel. But strangely, I looked on Discogs, the LP version, like the vinyl version of this album on the first pressing, this is the end of side 1. Like they switched the tracks, like they had to not include some stuff. And you know, well, I'll tell you where I think this song should be on the album.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that actually, because the one criticism I would have is I don't like where this song sits on the album. It just feels buried to me, and I think it is such a terrific song. I mean, epically terrific. I think this is one of the best of the band's career. I just, you know, I don't know where you would put it because it's definitely not kind of like a first track, but you're going to answer that for
I'll
me.
tell you.
Okay.
I'll tell you where to put it.
Okay. You're going to tell me where to put it. All right. With that,
I'll tell you where you put that.
yeah. Why don't we move on? Why don't we move on to I Broke My Promise, 3 minutes and 37 seconds. We are going to revisit one of the very popular characters in Mark Eitzel's songs. So let's give it a listen.
I broke my promise that I wouldn't write another song about you. I guess I lied. After 12 years, I still love you. On the phone you sound happy, but a heart can cry, and you don't see the tears. I'm glad you went back. I'm glad you went back. I'm glad you went back. I'm glad you went back.
Okay, J. William Hall. I really monopolized the conversation in What Holds the World Together. So I think it's important that I pass this one over to you, if for no other reason than because it mentions Columbus, Ohio. So go ahead.
That's correct. I mean, that's definitely, obviously, the first thing that jumped out at me. And so I was like, who did he know in San Francisco that, was going back to Columbus? So somebody who had been in Columbus previously, came to San Francisco, was going back. So I am 100%, 1,000% sure that this song is about Greg Bunnell.
Really? That's
no? I'm kidding. I think it's about Kathleen, right?
Yeah,
it's got to be about Kathleen.
Yeah, I thought you were serious for a second, which would be a very lovely sentiment, actually. I mean,
hey.
No, it is about Kathleen, who left San Francisco to get drug treatment. Now, what was not clear to me from the book, right, is whether she left San Francisco it seems to me as though she left San Francisco to get drug treatment in Atlanta. So I'm not sure if maybe after that she ended up in Columbus, and that's why Columbus is kind of factors into this. But it is kind of verified in the book that this is a Kathleen song.
Well, this changes a little bit of, I guess, my impression of, what, like, the impetus for the song. Like, I guess I saw it as more of like I broke my promise because I couldn't resist writing another song about you. But, filtering it through that version of events, like, it's like, oh, okay, it was a sweet sentiment about, like, I'm thinking about you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's an incredibly sweet sentiment. Right? I mean, I think this is like a really sweet expression of genuine affection and hope for the best. I think it's a very, very lovely, sweet lyric.
Yeah. I will say, though, as a resident of Columbus, I'm deeply, deeply offended that Mark Eitzel claims that Columbus, there's no spotlight in Columbus. Come on, man. The Silicon Heartland?
No, maybe
what are you talking? Maybe one of the fastest growing cities in the Midwest?
It's true. The Silicon Heartland, is that what they're calling it now?
Oh, yeah. Maybe you haven't heard about all of the data centers.
Yeah. They're
going to bring millions of jobs.
Well, listen, I think that's terrific. And Columbus, if listeners, you have not been there, it is a lovely, lovely place. Perhaps he's saying that there is no spotlight. What he meant is there's no spotlight available because it's been hogged by you.
You think I'm hogging the spotlight?
Well, I didn't want to bring it up now necessarily, but yeah, this has been on my mind.
I am a major celebrity here in Columbus. It's difficult for me to go out. That's why nobody really knows J. William Hall.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a very sweet lyric. All right. So what about the music though? So I think I'm going to say that I think that the bridge of this song is by far the strongest element, both lyrically and musically. I actually really like the blue skies, Philip. You know, that lyric I think is memorable. The musical line I think is pretty. I like the energy of the chorus. But the rest of the song for me somehow feels a little lackadaisical.
Yeah, it definitely has. Like I think of two things. I think of 70s soft rock,
Yeah.
like kind of like Bread,
Yeah.
you know, like bands of that
Yeah.
ilk, but also like again that sort of like Steve Winwood, Don Henley 80s kind of like synthy,
Yeah.
like real light synthy kind of production. So I don't know, you know, I mean, two times it's not an accident, you know,
Yeah.
like, so I'm not sure who was driving that sort of vibe.
Yeah.
Um,
Ciccarelli. That son of a bitch,
it's
Ciccarelli.
gotta be.
Ciccarelli.
Man.
He's trying to
Come
make
on, man.
he's trying to make him into a yacht rock band. Now there is flute.
Yeah.
There is flute in this song, is there not, or is that a keyboard?
No, well, I mean, it sounds like a flute.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a keyboard or I don't know, but like, yeah, and there's sitar.
Yeah.
There's sort of like, I mean, maybe this, you know, maybe this is like their LA,
Yeah.
soft rock kind of, what do you call it? What's the area outside of LA with Joni
The
Mitchell and
Canyon. What's it called?
Laurel
Yeah,
Canyon.
Laurel Canyon. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
For some reason,
I mean,
of all the canyons that exist in LA, there's like Topanga Canyon, Laurel Canyon. The only name that I could think of was Benedict Canyon, which is like the canyon that nobody ever talks about because like nothing happened there. But anyway, yeah. Shout out Benedict Canyon.
named after Benedict Arnold.
That's right. That's right. I thought you were going to say Benedict Cumberbatch, but
no, Benedict Arnold.
Okay.
Famous American
Turncoat.
Turncoat,
That's
traitor.
Right, that's right. All right. Well, listen, I broke my promise. Interesting song. I think it's a sweet sentiment. It's a memorable song. Great bridge. But why don't we move on?
And another memorable chorus.
That's
too.
right.
You
That's
know,
right.
like repeated chorus.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we move on to The Thorn in My Side Is Gone? Okay. The Thorn in My Side Is Gone is 4 minutes and 41 seconds. We're going to give it a listen right now.
When they talk about strength, they usually mean the way that blood sticks to the hand. When they talk about strength, I know they don't mean a touch that only love understands. And I'll never leave you. I'll never leave you. Love never lies.
Jay William, please talk to me about this one.
So my interpretation of this seemed to be, you know, sort of mourning, you know, somebody who's not in your life anymore, whether somebody died. I didn't know, you know, could it be a parent? Could it be, you know, somebody who, you know, a thorn in your side is, you know, somebody who like bothers you or irritates you, you know, but now it's like they're gone. And, you know, but Eitzel definitely doesn't seem like happy about it. You know, it's like sort of feeling despondent about it. You know, and so that leads me to think like maybe it's about one of his parents or, you know, somebody that you have a emotional attachment to in spite of whatever irritation or tension or whatever may have been there, you know?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the sense that I had from this. I really do like these lyrics quite a bit. And I had I had a similar feel. Like, this is kind of one of those expressions of sadness and regret for having lost someone who maybe you didn't always have a great relationship with. Maybe there were some problems there, but in retrospect, you do feel regret for having lost that. I think in particular, I swear you could see me if you opened up your eyes is a really great lyric. Powerful. It's
well, another great lyric is "Love never lies."
Yeah.
Like, such a simple
Yeah.
expression or idea, but like, it hit me this time. Like, it just I was like, wow, like, you know, that.
Yeah.
Great, you know, just great line.
Yeah, great.
Good one.
Yeah, good lyrics. So one little anecdote I want to share about the production of this song that came from the Sean Body book that I think describes a little bit of the tension that existed between Caffin and Ciccarelli during the recording of the album. But I think it's interesting when you listen to the song. So apparently Caffin pushed really hard to have this song recorded in Eitzel's house. At this point, Eitzel had bought a house in San Francisco, and he thought that the song should be recorded in the kind of first floor of the house, the ground level of the house, with all the doors and windows open to give it this. I think the way it's described in the book is like a kind of a Saturday morning or Sunday morning feel. But like, you could imagine lots of ambient noise, lots of just like feels like somebody just plucking away in their living room.
Is there a reason why he thought, like, is that how he first heard it? Like, did he hear, like, did Mark play it for him or something? And he was like, oh, that would, you know.
It doesn't say why he felt like that's the way it should be done. But I guess there was a conflict. There was a conflict and disagreement about recording it that way. In the end, there was a compromise made where the song was recorded in the basement with like the doors closed, the basement of the house. And that Caffin just kind of somehow in the book, it's kind of described as like, you know, sometimes you just can't, you know, a compromise doesn't really get you anything. You know what I mean? It's like, it's worse than both options. And I guess Caffin's impression was of this, or it's either the author's or Caffin's impression, that it ended up having a kind of a claustrophobic sound to it. I didn't really, on my listen, I didn't feel like it felt particularly claustrophobic. You definitely do hear some kind of ambient noise in here, and I do like some of the you know, that sound of fingers moving on strings. You get a little bit of that. It has a very organic sound and it's very intimate, which I like.
Yeah, I mean, when you were describing like how he wanted to record it, I was thinking that's like, now that you're saying it, like, that's what it's like, I can picture that scene, you know, based on this recording of like him sitting in a open, empty room with the windows open and just the traffic outside and that kind of thing. Yeah, you know, like, so I think that they did achieve that impression.
Yeah.
If that's not actually how they recorded it, but I wouldn't say claustrophobic is how I feel it sounds, but you know.
Yeah, I can't.
It's the difference between like somebody who was there.
Yeah.
You know, like obviously their impression is very different from someone who was not there.
Yeah.
You know? And 30 years later is speculating.
Yeah. No, for sure. I don't dislike the production of this song at all. I just thought it was an interesting little anecdote that demonstrates what was going on kind of during the recording of this. One of the things that struck me, I think this is Eitzel playing the acoustic here. I'm not certain, but I think it is. And I just think it's lovely guitar work on this song. I think it's really, really pretty.
Yeah. I mean, you know, this is, I mean, it's not the same as like the Eitzel on Songs of Love in a way, just because this song is so much more quiet and subdued.
Yeah.
But it is worth noting that there's another version of this song that was released as a B-side to one of the singles from this album.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's got a little bit of a different production to it because like the band plays on it. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, it's all right. You gotta, you know what? Crack. That's what it says. Well, you're gonna have to do a quick search in Lotus Notes there and find it.
Fudge. Okay. So in that version, this is on one of the singles, Hello Amsterdam EP. Thorn in My Side Is Gone alternate version. It's got synthy strings added, and Eitzel, he doesn't stay at the low register. He jumps up like at some point and is in an upper register. And so it made me think that they were trying different arrangements of the song and trying to figure out like how to get the band involved a little bit. And then they ended up just, doing the Eitzel solo essentially. There might be a little bit of like ambient sound in the back, but pretty. I like it. I like the song.
Yeah, I actually think the intimacy and kind of the fact that it's more or less him solo, I think works within the context of this album pretty well. It's a nice kind of break. Okay, so shall we move on to I'll Be Gone?
Yeah.
Okay. This is 3 minutes and 56 seconds. In a lot of ways, I think of this as the last track on the album, but we can discuss that in a moment after we've listened to it, which we'll do right now.
It was a long, hot summer day. We're in the living room watching the light drain away. And you're too tired to read what your cards foretold inside of a yard. Just said, the first time you show me your true heart, I'll be gone.
All right, J. William Hall, I have to admit, I'm just not too sure how to interpret these lyrics personally. Did you have any big takeaway on these?
No. These are amongst the most impenetrable lyrics, I think, on the album. I was trying to think about, like, it's like the beginning of 2001 when she said, I'll be gone, I'll be gone. Like, is he referring to the movie? Is there a scene in the movie or the novel or whatever of 2001?
I don't know. I don't remember that from the beginning of 2001. I don't remember anyone saying I'll be gone, but that may be because I'm a heathen and can't recollect that immediately.
Yeah, I mean, there's references to Red Light, Green Light, which is like a childhood game. So it's like, is he talking about someone in his past, or is he just making up a scene? Or, I really could not kind of make heads or tails of the meaning.
Now, my big question, and this is almost certainly crazy conspiracy theory thinking by me. However, I was wondering if the position of this song in the sequence of the album and the name and this I'll Be Gone sentiment, is this Eitzel somehow subtly acknowledging this is the end of the band? Because it does, according to the book, by the time they're finished up with the recording of this album, Eitzel is kind of semi-openly acknowledging that to the band. That unless this album somehow or another becomes a huge hit, the band is over, And I just wonder, because it is kind of an uncharacteristically... Yeah, the lyrics I just had a tough time getting inside of, but I'll Be Gone is like such a direct message, clear message, and I don't know. I just wondered that.
I'm planning on leaving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that interpretation is as good as any, because I really have none. I didn't know, it felt vaguely like a romance, two characters in a movie. It's got a lot of the like,
Yeah.
just the whole start of it. It was a long, hot summer day.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of like you're setting up a scene in a movie or a play or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I hadn't thought about this is about the band.
Yeah. Again, I'm probably a little overly influenced by the narrative that gets overlaid to this kind of backtracking experience by the book, right? I think it's somewhat unavoidable for me to kind of like take the narrative that exists over the course of the book, the narrative of the band, and then, it's hard to not impose that on the sequencing of the songs and the sequencing of the albums. All right, so why don't we talk about the music? So I have a number of little quibbles, nothing really, really huge, but like again, I'm gonna dig into the percussion. I'm sorry, Tim Mooney, but I gotta do it. Tambourine, just I don't understand why they had to add it here, and I think that the tambourine, especially in the chorus of this song, the way they mixed it makes it somehow, in comparison to the drums, makes the drums sound wimpy. Like there's no drive. They're just not quite high enough in the mix. Yeah, I don't know. I just
my note, I agree. It feels somehow like low energy, through the first 3/4 of the song, and then it kind of picks up at the end a little bit. And maybe that's why, like maybe they gave too much ground to the tambourine and not enough to the drums. And so it comes across as a little bit limp, at least at the start, like it just doesn't hit right away. But it does have, again, it's got this sort of like, I can only think of it as like 80s synthy sort of, vibe to it that reminds me in some ways of those like 80s LA pop bands like the Motels, and like that sort of, and it could just be the sound of the keyboard at the beginning, but it's also got another bass part that reminds me of Echo and the Bunnymen, this sort of like looped, or not, it's not looped, but it's sort of a loopy bass part that kind of goes round and round. And, so it's like there were some production choices and arrangement choices, I feel like, on this album that definitely harken back to the 80s in different ways, which I think was like a little bit out of step, like for 1994.
Yeah, I have to say that bass part, it annoyed me. I did not like that bass part. Whereas I think generally over the course of the last really 2 albums, I really enjoy the bass playing overall. I think it sits differently in the mix. It's pretty interesting. Overall, I kind of like most of the choices, but in this one, I wasn't a huge fan. One of the things I loved in this song, and it might be the only thing that I really loved, was Voodie coming out of the second chorus into the solo. It is, I love this solo, and it's just so interesting and weird again. I mean, he just is, he's totally mastered this very unique sound and the way it fits into the band. I think I love that moment in the song.
Yeah, he's got this very off-kilter kind of like approach to lead guitar.
Yeah.
That and I think I make this point when we were talking about side 1, where it's like, in some ways the AMC sound on this album is getting a little more kind of like not mainstream, because I mean, we've talked endlessly how this, lyrically and everything else, this is not a mainstream band, but I think that there were some like production choices on this album and on Mercury, where it is sort of like they're trying to kind of poke their heads into that more mainstream universe, you know, but Voodie, you know, his instincts seem to run counter to that, you know, like, and so it's an interesting, you know, that's part of the DNA of this band and why, you know, the band was so impactful on me. It's this coming together of different approaches and ideas. And, you know, you definitely would not hear a guitar solo like that on Steve Winwood's fucking solo album. You know what I mean? Like, you know, or Crowded House, you know, or any of these other sort of more mainstream-ish bands that we've talked about, like in relation to AMC, you know, like Voodie keeps them firmly in this sort of like arty,
I'm telling you,
kilter kind of space.
It's Johnny Greenwood. You know what I'm saying? Like without Johnny Greenwood, I really feel like, especially the first two Radiohead records, would be substantially less interesting. I still think, especially the second record, would be really good. I mean, the songwriting, I think, is super top notch. And overall, I think a good record. But that element to the band, I think, you know, it's really difficult to, at least for me, to understate how important that is to the overall feel of the band. And I think that, I would agree. I think that Voodie just, in some ways, I think it's a shame that it doesn't seem like on these last two records, the producers knew quite how to deal with it. You know what I mean? It just seems like a lot of the times he's just buried in the mix.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree, you know, or like, I mean, you know, I want to say relegated to a support role or whatever, but I mean, you know, part of the role of the lead guitarist is support, you know, like for when the singer's singing or whatever. But like when he has his moments, you know, and I think on the last two albums, even if overall he's been a little bit like sidelined, like there are still moments, you know, like sprinkled throughout the albums, and definitely on this album, this is one of those moments. You know, and that's the point when the song lifts. Like energy wise as well, you know, and, you know, so I think that like, you know, and we'll talk about this a little bit when I get into my revised edition, but I think that, you know, the back half of this album as released, there are a number of songs that are more kind of subdued in some way. And I think that you know, kind of weighs down the back half of this album. A skosh. So, yeah.
All right. So listen, should we move? Why don't we just, you know, we don't need to play it. Well, I'm going to play it. We might as well play it. Do you want to, I'll just play a real quick snippet of the interlude thing that appears here. It is I think it's, what is it called? Fearless Reprise or something?
It's Fearless hidden track or whatever.
Yeah, so I'll just play a quick little blip of that. All right, so Jay William, what do you think of this inclusion here in this spot on the record?
Well, I mean, obviously, like, I think my interpretation is that this is the true end of the album.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You know, because like when you look at the track listing on the back of the CD, it's like I'll Be Gone is the final song.
Yeah.
Then you've got this, and I think of this as like sort of like, this sort of callback to the beginning of the album.
Yeah, bookend.
I do, you know, I feel like in the CD era, this is definitely the time where they're starting to push the boundaries, you know, lengthwise of albums. And, you know, this is sort of, you know, of its era in that way.
Yeah. I like this little, you know, blip, whatever it is. I do like that. I like that it calls back, I like that it calls back Fearless, the first song on the album. So I would agree. I think this is, you know, in some ways trying to bookend it. But unfortunately, It isn't. Well, fortunately, you're on. I guess it depends on your perspective. It isn't really the last track we're going to talk about. The last track we're going to talk about, of course, is the hidden track on the album. We were talking about hidden tracks not too long ago, but it is California Dreamin', 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Why don't we give it a quick little listen?
All the leaves are brown, and the sky is gray. I went for a walk on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm if I was in LA. California dreaming on such a winter's day.
Okay, Jay Williams, how do you explain the inclusion of this cover on the album? This is the first cover that they've recorded on a full length in their entire career. I think it may be the first cover they've ever recorded in their career to date.
I've got one word for you.
Yeah.
Ciccarelli.
You think it's Ciccarelli?
Yes, my theory, and I could be totally wrong on this, because the one thing that I discovered, AMC did record another cover song right around this time, possibly in the same sessions, for it's a cover of the Carpenters' Goodbye to Love, which was the opening track on a compilation, a Carpenters tribute compilation of like a lot of like alternative bands that came out around this time. And in fact, I believe that track is AMC's most streamed song on Spotify.
Really?
Yeah. Just looking at the top 5 or whatever for AMC, I think that one is like way more than any of their other tracks, which is ridiculous. But that was a prominent placement, but I believe Joe Ciccarelli had something to do with that compilation. And
interesting. Okay.
So he was an LA guy, he was tied into all of these LA bands, like going back into the 80s, 70s.
Sure.
So my conjecture is that he was like, hey, AMC, do you want to do a song for this Carpenters tribute that I'm putting together or whatever? California Dreamin', somebody must have suggested this. In a way it makes sense, because it's kind of like, they're from California and their album San Francisco. And although I associate California Dreamin' more with LA, Mamas and Papas. Yeah. But the thing that I find strange about this is how reverent the cover is. Like, it's this really straightforward, like, we're just going to kind of play it like how they played it, sort of. And the Mamas and the Papas were such a, like, their whole sound was built on the harmonies, of the voices. Yeah. And it's like, as much as I love AMC's, singing and the harmonies that Danny, but it's like, I don't know that this is the song. I don't know. I'm puzzled by this cover, and I'm puzzled by its inclusion as a hidden track on the album, All
right, so I'm going to throw something out for you.
Okay.
And I want to know what. No, I'm not going to educate you.
I thought you needed some background or something.
No. I'm just going to ask you if there may be a chance that this was inspired by the massive success, you might say breakthrough success, you might say the only mainstream success that the Lemonheads had with their cover of Mrs. Robinson right around this time.
Yeah, it's true. This was, I have a theory. Have we talked about this?
I don't know. You had theories. I've heard some other theories, but I don't know. You have to share some with me before I can tell you if we've talked about it.
I believe that, particularly in the music world, trends in sound and in prestige or whatever go in roughly 20-year cycles. Like And some of this is just the general culture. Like, people romanticize the culture and try to sort of appropriate little elements of the culture from 20 years prior. 10 years prior is too recent. Like, you're still shitting on 10 years prior. 20 years prior is where you're saying, like, oh, I actually have a soft spot for some of that stuff, you know, and like you start incorporating elements. So I believe in the early 90s, you know, early to mid 90s, they were kind of like still sort of, there was still sort of a romanticization of the era, say 20 to 25 years earlier. So like late 60s, the hippie, you know, like, I mean, you know,
there's no question.
All the hippie stuff came back, you know, like in the mid 90s. That was one element of the culture of the time. And, you know, San Francisco was the epicenter of that culture originally.
Sure.
And so, you know, there were these like alternative bands that were a little more, you know, flirting with the mainstream, that were doing covers, reverent-ish covers of some of those songs from that era. So I think that that's an excellent observation, you know, because I do think that, you know, in that context, it makes sense that they attempted a song like that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't want to take credit for that thought. At some point earlier on in the book, there is a discussion of there's a quote from a music writer about one of the AMC albums. It's not San Francisco. It's earlier than that. It's either Everclear or Mercury, where the writer or whoever it is that's quoted in the book says something about Evan Dando and how, like, there is some bit of similarity between Eitzel and Evan Dando. And Dando had this breakthrough commercial hit with their cover of Mrs. Robinson, but was like quite, he did a lot of promotion around the band at that time, around that album, and was just kind of a big like celebrity. Yeah. And there was like a question about whether that was something that Eitzel would even engage in at all. Now, I am not, I just don't know the Lemonheads at all. I have never been a fan. I'm, never really been interested. So it's difficult for me. My impression of Evan Dando is always like, oh, he was kind of this pretty boy, quasi-punk guy who, you know, was.
Well, no, I mean, I think he was a genuine, you know, punk or whatever you want to call, like, you know, I don't think he was like given anything on a silver platter. I think he was a good looking dude. And, you know, somehow he wound up, like, he was in the Winona Ryder dating thing. I don't know. Like, somehow his, you know, I think his good looks and, you know, and the Lemonheads' early stuff was catchy and punky and endearing. And, you know, there were, you know, there was good stuff about it. So I think it was genuine. But then I think, like, probably they signed, I don't know who the Lemonheads signed to, but I'm sure like the record label was like, we're going to try to make this guy a star, you know?
Yeah.
And I think his, you know, clearly his personality and, you know, it didn't take to that, like it didn't stick, you know, but I don't think that that's because he was a phony, you know, but I do think that some of that maybe, you know, in our Gen X judgmental you know, you're a sellout, you know, I think there was some of that stink that accumulated around him unfairly, I'm sure, but like that definitely was true, like, because I remember being a little like, you know, Lemonhead, you know, like
I didn't
that was
realize
unfair.
You were I didn't realize you were going to be such a Lemonheads apologist.
I'm not a big fan, you know, but you know,
why don't you just get it? It's a shame about Ray poster and put it up behind you. Why don't you just go do that, Lemonheads?
Hey, I wish him well, and for all of you Lemonheads aficionados out there, I say huzzah.
And you know what I say? Fuck the Lemonheads, those sellout fuckers. Well, we have gotten nowhere with our interpretation of California Dreamin'.
Well,
my feeling is like, I don't feel like this detracts from the album, but I can't help but think that there is some significance to including it at the end of what they maybe knew was their last studio album, at least for a long time. Including it as a hidden track at the end. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but somehow or another, I feel like maybe there's no significance to it, but that's what I kept on like beating my head against. Like, they must have meant something by including this at the end of this record.
Well, it could just be as simple as like they were a California band and, you know, I don't know. I blame Ciccarelli though. I think somebody put it in their head to do this or put them up to, or not put them up to it, but it's just a strange, you know, if you were going to pick any song from the 60s to cover, you know, to do a reverent cover of, like, this one, like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I mean, I just feel like the original version, that's the only version that's needed. Like, that version is iconic. Like, you're not going to do it better, you know?
Or if you were going to do it, wouldn't you want to, like, I think this is a totally fine version of this song. I don't dislike this version of the song, but it does seem to me like if you're going to do a song that's as iconic as this, you really need to do something radically different with it. It's like, have you ever heard the low version of the Bee Gees song, I Started a Joke?
I don't think I've heard it, but I can imagine it, you know, and
it's like,
and it highlights the sadness of the lyrics, you know, and you're doing something different with it. Like, to me, like, that's what I prefer, you know. I mean, if you want to play the song live, I mean, bands do covers live, you know, to knock yourself out, you know, but like on the album, to me, this is not an appropriate inclusion on this album, especially as the final song, you know, on the last album of AMC version 1 or version whatever you want to call it. Like, you end that run with a cover of the Mamas and the Papas. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, it seems strange. All right, but that does feel to me, Jay William, like a perfect transition into what I know some people have been waiting for, which is the can I help you? What is it?
Can you help it? Can you help it?
Okay. Can you help it? Can you help it version of San Francisco. Let's hear the track list.
So, in my opinion, and again, just one person's opinion, but you know, I've already spoken to my great love of the metric system, decimals, right? Yeah, so, in my mind, the perfect length of an album, 10 songs, 5 songs per side, right? So this album obviously is a lot longer than that. So some tough cuts had to be made for the J. William Hall Can You Help It edition of American Music Club's San Francisco.
Okay.
Track 1, big surprise, Fearless. Same as the original version, which I know last episode we, spoke highly of. Track 2, Can You Help Me? Put it at track 2. Get the people moving and grooving. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yep,
I like it.
Track 3, Love Doesn't Belong. Great follow-up to Can You Help Me? Same as the original album, but bumped up a spot. Track 4, we're still sticking with side 1 of the release, Wish the World Away. Track 4, another upbeat. So you've got, Fearless is sort of, slow and smooth, and then Can You Help Me kind of bumps it up, and then Love Doesn't Belong's about here, and then Wish the World Away goes way up. So track 5, here's where it gets controversial. I am including in my version of the album a B-side.
What? Okay.
You know I love my B-sides. And the one that I was unfamiliar with until I backtracked this album, and of course I tracked down all of the B-sides, and I just took 2 sleeping pills, and now I'm standing like a bridegroom standing at the altar. Or
yes.
maybe I got that title slightly wrong, but I may have typed it wrong. That is a B-side included on a couple of the singles off of the album. And I think it's great. It's got it's got more momentum to it.
It's a more rockin' song than a lot of the mid-tempo stuff that ends up on this album, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like it sounds a little more like classic, or not classic, like AMC from 80s era AMC or something like about it, and a little more raw sounding.
Yeah,
and so I think it's a great closer for side 1. So then you flip the record over at the beginning of side 2, kicking it off. In the Shadow of the Valley, we're going slowcore right off the bat, just like on Restless Stranger with Goodbye Reprise number 5. Like, you flip the record over and it just comes in and it's the mood, and you're just like, damn, so that's the first track on side 2. Next one, Cape Canaveral.
Okay. Yep.
Next one after that, The Revolving Door. Okay. Next one after that, The Thorn in My Side is Gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like where this is going.
So what I'm demonstrating for you is that on side 2, what we're sort of doing is we've got a mini suite. Like we're going down, man. Like we're keeping it down from the first track on the second side, through the 4th track on the second side. Like it's a grim mood. Okay. But to me, like, this is the AMC, the sad core, like I love it. I can't get enough, and that's what I want. And then we're gonna close the album, the final track. What holds the world together? It's the emotional climax of the album. It starts sort of soft in the same tenor as the rest of and then it builds to this big emotional climax, and you leave them wanting more.
Yeah, you know what? I actually really like that. More or less, I really like it. I would say the one criticism that I might have is I'm not sure I would go from Can You Help Me to, what did you went to?
But that's what
Can You Help Me to?
Yeah, to Love Doesn't Belong. That's what they do on the actual. That's what they do on the actual album.
No, but I'm saying I might go from Can You Help Me to Wish the World Away, track 3.
Well,
then Love is, once they're up from Can You Help Me, you keep them up and like, boom, there they are. And then maybe Love Doesn't Belong, then.
I think
or you even do Sleeping Pill and then Love Doesn't Belong to close. I don't know, but I didn't like that they you brought them up. They come down a little bit, then you brought them up again.
Okay.
It feels a little bit too herky-jerky.
Well, I think I considered that exact thing that you said to put Wish the World Away at number 3, especially because that was kind of like, one of the singles, and, get it earlier in the album. So I'll allow that alteration. Okay. So if you want to do your edition of my edition of the album.
I will. Okay, well, I love it. All right, so now there's really only one thing left for us to do, Jay William, and that is the best and the worst. This is what people love. They love for us to be put in this pickle where we've got to make an objective decision about a subjective topic. Okay?
Yeah.
We need to do something not every man is willing to do. Some of them are just too scared to do it. They don't want to go on record. They're unwilling to be put on record. I am going to make you go on record right now. I want to know, what is the worst song on American Music Club's 7th album, San Francisco?
So the one thing that I should mention with my J. William Hall's edition of San Francisco is that because I cut it down to 10 tracks, there are a number of tracks that were, excised from the actual version of the album. And
why don't you tell us? Why don't you just say which ones those were really quickly? So it's California Dreamin'.
Definitely California Dreamin'. Hello, Amsterdam. It's Your Birthday.
Yeah.
I Broke My Promise. How Many Six Packs Does It Take? I'll Be Gone. And then there were some B-sides as well that were, President's Test of Physical Fitness, On a Clear Day, Elbow Deep.
Okay.
So my thought was that you would do a post-album EP, and you would put that stuff out. All right. So my pick for worst song on the album, I'm going to say it's I'll Be Gone.
Well, J. William Hall, you put a lot of work in. You've been woodshedding. You've been working your fingers to the bone. And I am happy to report that you got that one right. The worst song on this album is I'll Be Gone.
That's right.
Good job. Yeah, it just somehow seems slight. And I think it somehow seems even more slight when you think about it as kind of the last original track on this album that was the last album for a long time. Okay. But now let's turn away from those negative topics, things like worst song. I want to know what the best song on American Music Club San Francisco is. There's a lot of great songs on here, but you're going to have to pick the best.
The best song on American Music Club's San Francisco album is Can You Help Me?
Wow, that is an interesting choice. Upbeat choice, rockin' song, like really, really interesting. One of the songs that I love. Unfortunately, that is definitely the wrong choice.
No, that song
is definitely the wrong choice.
That song is undeniable.
It's undeniable, but it is undeniable that it is not the best song
so
on this album.
So you think there's a song that's even more undeniable?
I think that there is a song that is a classic of any era, any genre, any performer. It is a song that could only be written by one person, one of the great songwriting geniuses of our time, a true poet, a true romantic. The song is What Holds the World Together. That is without a doubt the best song on this album. Not even close. It is not even close.
A worthy pick, and the song that I picked to be the final track on J. William Hall's edition. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm not gonna fight with you about it.
Well, yeah, you don't. I mean, when you take the SAT, you don't like write them a letter and say, "Oh, I want to fight you with my score." I just scored you, and you got that one wrong. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll have to live with it, and maybe I'll do another podcast and I'll rethink it.
Well, I mean, it's like the PSATs versus the SATs. You only get, how many shots do you get at the SATs these days?
As many as you're willing to shell out the bucks for.
Is that true? You can take the SATs as many times as you want?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Just pay the money and go take it again. Yeah.
Wow. Well, SATs, All right. Well, listen.
Or
J.
pay
William
the money
Hall,
and have some hired brainiac go take it as
right. Is that something that people do?
Oh, hell yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How do they don't make you check an ID or anything when you go in?
They pull strings. Connected people. There's a whole shadowy world. There's a whole shadow. Hey, what was that whole giant scandal that broke out a couple years ago in LA with the actress? And you know what I'm talking about, where they were like,
oh yeah, but that was different. They were like basically bribing coaches to give them scholarships to get into colleges, even though they were dopes or something. It was like they all said that they were like, they needed to get a sailing scholarship or something, right? Is that the one you're thinking of?
Probably.
Yeah.
So my theory is slightly different, but
yeah. Oh, so this is a theory now. You don't have any evidence of these these substitute SAT takers.
You don't need evidence anymore to.
All right. Well, listen, I'm going deep. I'm going deep. I'm going to do some investigative reporting. I'm going to find out.
Well, I know.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are done with San Francisco. Jay William, thank you as always. There is only one thing that the audience has to do. It's a multi-part task, but it really is just one thing. First, part A of the task, hit subscribe. Part B of the task, hit the share button. Send it to all of your friends. Part C, write a review. 5 stars only, because that's how we roll.
It's just like click, 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 and that's it.
Yeah. You got to do all of those things. You got to just do it. So just go do that. And then when you're done with that one task, which has multiple parts in it, multiple stages, when you're finished with all of that, then relax. Job well done. And just wait for us to come back next week. Because next week, Jay William, we are going to be diving into... You don't know, and actually we haven't discussed this,
no.
So we need to decide, actually.
What are we diving into?
Yeah, well, this is going to be interesting. We could either cover some oddities, rarities, and ephemera from this earlier phase of their career, or we could dive right into the Eitzel solo catalog. Obviously, we've already covered Songs of Love, but it is now time for us to, at least in the chronology, tackle 60 Watt Silver Lining. So we're going to have to decide that. Next week, listeners, it is either going to be ephemera or it's going to be 60 Watt Silver Lining. Why don't you just tune in? It's going to be a delightful surprise either way.
Stay tuned.
Okay. Jay William, thank you as always. Have a happy and healthy week.
Thanks, you too, and thanks for doing this and inviting me on. And now that you're the boss,
right.
Hey.
Excellent. All right, we will see you all next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.